Hello, everyone. Wingman here. Give us 1 second. We're having some technical difficulties, but 1 second, we'll get Gail up here. So hope you're all having a great day and enjoy our 23rd episode of Living Beyond Prostate Cancer. All right, we're going to do a test because we're having some issues with our audio. Hey, B-Rad, you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Awesome.
Nope, can't hear.
Awesome.
Can't.
Okay. And
I am here as well.
awesome. We're going to do one more test and see if we can get Miss Gail on and get her audio corrected. Let's see.
Gail, here. Can you hear me?
And we can hear you. Perfect. All right. I'm going to go away now, but hello to everybody and goodbye.
All right. All right. Well, I am going to just do my brief intro. This is episode 23 of the Beyond Cancer series. I'm Gail, aka Sunshine, and I have two prostate cancer survivors with me today, Carl and Brad. If you haven't joined us before, this Beyond Cancer series is something that's put on by the alumni team. And that means all of us who are on the alumni team have at some point attended an EPIC experience camp. We're from all over the United States. We have all different kinds of cancer. And we wanted to see if we could help keep the community going that's established when we're at camp. So that's kind of how this whole series got started. We've been covering a number of different topics. And one of the things we've been doing recently is talking to different groups of cancer survivors. And today we have two prostate cancer survivors. So Brad and Carl, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And first, I just want to start off by having you guys introduce yourselves, where you live, when you went to camp, your camp name, and if you feel like it, one fun fact about you. So, Brad, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Okay. So, Brad, I live in West Dallas, Wisconsin, which is really kind of right next to Milwaukee, so really kind of part of Milwaukee. I attended camp in January of 2017, and the camp name was Snow Apocalypse because it snowed like an apocalypse. It was actually, by the time we left, it was over 6 feet deep on the ground.
Wow.
And my camp name is B-Rad, and geez, I don't know, fun fact about me. I'm not sure that one. It's all fun.
There you go. Perfect. Welcome. Carl, how about you?
I'm Carl. I went to camp in 2013, and I had cancer diagnosed back in 2011. I live in Salt Lake City. We're excited for the vice president debate tonight.
All right. There you go. All right. Well, let's start off talking about your actual cancer diagnosis. When you were diagnosed, symptoms that you had kind of leading up to that, how long it took, kind of your whole experience of actually being diagnosed. And if this is true of you, if it's reoccurred, kind of how that all went too. And for the rest of this, you guys just kind of jump in and we'll just go from there. All right.
Want me to start?
Go for it.
Okay. So how I was diagnosed was kind of interesting. It was in 2016, I had a physical. And so I had the physical done, and I had not had any symptoms that I was aware of, and got a call from my general practitioner and said, your PSA level was kind of high. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, whatever. And said, well, you should have a see a urologist and have a biopsy done. And I was like, okay. And, I think there has been a lot of information out there of false PSA numbers and things like that, whether true or not. And so I was just kind of like, okay, whatever, I'm going to, have this done. And so I went and had the biopsy done. And I guess after the biopsy, first met with, urologist, then the biopsy and that. And when it was all done, I started asking some questions like, what about this? What about this? And all that. And he handed me a book that was 100 questions about prostate cancer.
Wow.
And I walked out the door and I got home and I said to my wife, I said, I think I got cancer. And she goes, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, he gave me this book. I said, I don't think they give you a book about prostate cancer unless they have a pretty good idea, And so sure enough, called us back, said, come on in, let's meet and go over this. And yep, sure enough, had prostate cancer. And that was diagnosis came down on St. Patrick's Day of 2016. And so the good and the bad of that is that on St. Patrick's Day every day, I have what people sometimes call your cancerversary. And there's just happens to be this party going on for me everywhere. So I can go out anywhere and somebody's celebrating my cancerversary.
So what you're saying is that he didn't actually tell you that you might have cancer that first.
Yeah, he didn't really. Again, he was just kind of, again, I can't remember what, but I was asking the questions and he was like, well, I'll tell you what, here, just take this. So yeah, no, he didn't say that at that point. And I think in retrospect, what he saw for the PSA numbers and, I don't know what in the biopsy you could do because they're just taking samples,
Right.
But I think he had a pretty good idea. I think he knew what was going on. And so.
And is the PSA, is that a tumor marker basically?
Yeah. So again, the positive and negatives of things is if there is one thing that's positive about prostate cancer is you can easily find the existence of prostate cancer with a blood test. So the PSA is that level out of your blood test. So it's very easy, a simple drawing of blood and running that. You can see that there probably is, prostate cancer. The negative is there is really no imaging test that you can find prostate cancer with unless it is really metastasized. So like in my case, I had what was considered stage 3 prostate cancer, and it had an 85% chance of spreading to other areas. But at that level, the spread would have been microscopic. And so therefore, there isn't any type of a scan or anything that can be done to find it until an additional tumor grows or things like that. So, negative and positive, it's easy to find the existence of prostate cancer. Negative, sometimes it's hard to find where else it could have gone until it's very advanced.
Right.
So,
thank you. Carl, let's hear your experience. You were back in 2011, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was back in 2011. I didn't have any side effects that would lead me to think I had prostate cancer, although I had a horrible family history of it. My father and his 2 brothers had it, and I had an older brother that had a radical prostatectomy and had prostate cancer. So I have been doing baseline PSA tests since I was 40. And unfortunately, my internist made a mistake because they usually wait until you get to be a level of 4 or higher on your PSA and before they send you for biopsies. Mm-hmm. But if you have a family history, they look to see and do a calculation called the rate of change or the rate of velocity, which is dividing your current PSA divided by last year's or your previous PSA. If it changes more than 20% in any given year, you should go get biopsied. So they made a mistake, and I got diagnosed late stage 3 and came out of surgery with stage 4 cancer.
Wow. So because you had a strong family history, basically you should have been they should have been tested, or did they start testing you early, but they still made a mistake in terms of how they gauged it, I guess.
Yeah, they didn't send me early enough to go get
Okay.
biopsied. They probably should have sent me up 3 or 4 years earlier to be
Oh,
biopsied.
Wow. Now, one thing I think that's associated with prostate cancer is something called the Gleason score. Can one of you explain what that is?
Yeah, why don't I lead off with that? There's a doctor by the name of Dr. Gleason, and he was kind of a pathologist expert and analyzed how aggressive the strain of the cancer cell is. And it's on a scale of 1 through 10. And the lower number is the least aggressive. You get to 8, 9, and 10, and that's the most aggressive prostate cancer cell that you have. So it gives the oncologist a pretty good indication as to what to recommend for treatments, whether it be watchful waiting before you have surgery, have radiation, but it just gives you an indication of how aggressive that was. I was a Gleason 9. Brad, I don't know what you were.
About 8.4.
Wow. So is that an automatic? Every time somebody's diagnosed with prostate cancer, they will do this Gleason score? Is that?
That's what the biopsy does.
Okay. And I did both of you have surgery? I know, Carl, you said you did. Brad, did you?
Well, not really true surgery, and that's where I can just kind of give you a brief rundown. We can get more detail. So I had, first of all, what's called a drug called Lupron. And so that's a deprivation, like a testosterone deprivation drug. It's actually used in fertility for women also.
Oh,
and, yeah, it is interesting. And so I had that drug, first of all, which it can have some extraordinary side effects. And then external beam radiation. So basically 5 days a week for 5.5 weeks, I had external beam radiation, and then had what's called brachytherapy, which is like a surgical procedure where they inject radiation directly into your prostate in a number of areas, like 18 areas in my case. And so direct that radiation in there. So I did not have prostate removed.
okay.
And in my case, that was recommended because of that possible spread. They didn't want to actually try to remove the prostate and therefore disturb all the cells and possibly spread to other areas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Carl, what did you do for surgery and then treatment? What was your process like?
They started me first with a radical prostatectomy, thinking I was late stage 3 and hoping it wasn't in my lymph nodes. But they found out during surgery I had 1 positive lymph node, so it made me stage 4. Then, like Brad, they put me on the chemical deprivation with Lupron and Casodex. I don't know, Brad, if you did Casodex as well.
I did not.
And then I did immunotherapy. There's a drug called Provenge, which uses your immune system. And I did 3 of those treatments before surgery and 1 post-surgery. And it helps the dendritic T cell that goes into your immune system to go find, seek, and destroy prostate cancer.
Incredible.
And then I did intensive radiation and image-guided radiation for 40 straight sessions.
Wow. So how long were you each in treatment? If you were to take all of that, was it 3 months, 6 month period?
It was a 2-year period.
It was 2 years for you. Wow.
Yeah. Mine was about 9 months.
Wow. And second question related to the staging. So Carl, you just said that because it was in your lymph nodes, that made it stage 4. They were thinking, Carl, that you were stage 3, and Brad, I guess you actually were stage 3. So what does that mean for prostate cancer? With other cancer, it usually means it's gone to other organs once it's, beyond the stage 2, or at least like for ovarian cancer, if it's gone into the abdomen, then they move it to stage 2 or 3. So how does that work with prostate cancer?
Go ahead,
I guess,
Brad.
Carl, Carl, you can correct me. My interpretation of it is that stage 3 is if there is the possibility of moving beyond your prostate, and stage 4 is metastasizing in a different area, which any metastasizing outside the prostate can be extremely dangerous.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And usually if they know if you've got positive lymph nodes, they don't want to do surgery on you.
Really? Why is that?
Because it's metastasized and it's all throughout your body, or the probability of it being all throughout your body. So they don't want to put your body through that.
Oh.
So like Brad, there's other treatment options that you can do.
Wow. So how did you respond when you were diagnosed? Like what was your initial reaction for both of you?
I found it pretty rough because it was a pretty big surprise. Yeah, I really wasn't expecting it. And like I say, when I heard about the first readings and all that, I still was kind of like, oh yeah, this doesn't necessarily mean anything. And and then again, when it was explained to me stage 3 of it could have spread to other areas, and I couldn't tell you statistics. I don't know, Carl, if you got any, but again, metastasizing in other areas is extremely dangerous and has, a lot of terminal situations with that.
Right.
And so when somebody tells you that that's an 85% chance that it could be in some other areas and could do that, I didn't find that a lot of fun to hear.
No.
So, yeah. And I, it's kind of funny because it seems like you guys we've been to camps and we've talked to a lot of people and that, and we're kind of in this cancer community, and it seems like a lot of people, it almost seems common that you end up with some twist to all of this, like something weird happens and something all that, and I had a few twists with it too, and so along the way it really kind of threw me. So
Right, just when you think you've got it or you have it under control, and
something else pops up.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Yeah.
Well, I got a phone call from my physician's assistant after the biopsy, and unfortunately, they didn't call me in to sit down and talk with me. He was actually, I hate to say this, he was pretty excited because they rarely see such aggressive cancer. So he told me you're late stage 3, stage 4. There's some treatments that we can do. We're not sure if they'll work, and your prognosis isn't very good. And that was over the phone. So that kind of put me into shock.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially if there's any hint of, like you said, excitement or
mortality.
Yeah, or mortality. I can imagine that would have been.
Yeah.
So given that,
what you don't want to ever hear from your doctor is, we've never seen this before, and this is going to be great that we're going to do something different.
Exactly. Like you're some guinea pig or something, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, good, we get to test
This is so cool.
Yeah, somehow that's not too
right.
reassuring, right?
Yeah.
So given both of your diagnoses, how did you go about telling people, like your family, friends? I don't know if you already have kids. How did you go about telling people?
Well, my wife was home and she heard me get the phone call. So she came back into my home office and I told her the bad news, and she was in shock as well. We kind of downplayed it with the kids. We didn't want to let them know how bad it was and how severe it was until we learned more about the situation.
How old were your kids at the time?
My youngest was 8 years old.
Hopefully we didn't lose Gail.
I think we just lost Gail.
Yeah. Anything more you want to add, Carl, or?
Well, and then we just kind of shared with them that I did have prostate cancer. They had known that my dad had had it and my other brother had had it. So they just thought I was going to go have surgery and I was going to be just fine. And they didn't know what the odds were for mortality, which I was expected to live less than 2 years.
Yeah, I mainly shared it with my wife and then, close family members, parents and stuff like that. And then I asked them to spread the word around. I didn't want people calling me. I wasn't in a good mental state for people, everybody means well, but for the typical call of, we wish you well or whatever, I didn't really want to talk about it. And I would say that, kind of the same as you. All right. We continued on.
It happened. Thank you.
And I think, it's kind of interesting because we sat down with my daughter and said, prostate cancer, and said, but don't worry about it. It's no big deal. And I think that was kind of a mistake because and I didn't want to go the opposite direction. I don't think is good and, really shock her or whatever. But it was kind of interesting because a couple years later, after all of everything cleared and all that, she kind of made the comment and something and saying, yeah, but that was no big deal. And I kind of said, okay, well, let me tell you what it was really, and good for you to know. And I guess it's better that she didn't worry through it, but I also think that it's good for people to know what you go through too, So.
Yeah. And I'm assuming while I took my brief hiatus, you were just answering the question about the kids.
Yes.
How did you guys go about telling people at work, other family members, friends, things like that?
Well, with work, it was a pretty easy discussion to have with my boss. It was just a matter of fact. I've been diagnosed with prostate cancer. I'm scheduled for surgery. I'll have to have radiation. And he was a wonderful human being and very supportive of me. So that made it really nice to have that support.
Yeah, because that can be a whole nother layer of stress if you're having to deal with difficulties getting time off or whatever you need at work. So
yeah, in my case at the time, I was an insurance agent, and so it was our business. I had a manager, so to speak, and he was extremely supportive.
yeah.
And his mother actually had gone through cancer treatment very recently,
wow.
so he kind of was aware of, the different types of things. And then my wife actually worked in the business, and then small staff besides. So yeah, it wasn't a threat that way where somebody was worried about me taking the time that I took off. So.
Did you guys use social media or anything like that to tell friends, or did you just kind of let the word trickle out, or tell the people who were closest to you and then kind of let it go that way?
Yeah, I don't even know if I was. I have to sit here and think of what I was on social media at the time. And it's only 4 years ago.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it was the small group that knew. Yep.
And that was the same for me. I didn't use social media. It was just talking directly to family, friends, and work associates.
Yep.
Yeah. Carl, you mentioned that you do have a family history. How many people in your family, Carl?
Well, I've got my dad and 2 uncles had it. I had an older brother had it. Then I've got 4 older brothers. Then I had it, and I made my other 2 brothers go get biopsied, and they were diagnosed. Luckily, they had Gleason 6 and 7, so they just had to have surgery. Didn't have to have all the other adjuvant treatments that I had to go through.
Wow, I had no idea it could be so prevalent, like in a family. I think that's the first I've heard that. Brad, how about you?
Just my father, and had a same thing, milder case, and actually just had some radiation treatment, and that was it.
Wow. How has being diagnosed with prostate cancer affected the way you live now? So, Carl, you've been done with treatment for what? 6 years?
7 years now.
And Brad, it's been what?
4 years.
4?
Yeah.
If it has, how has being diagnosed affected your life now, whether it's in terms of side effects, energy level, outlook on life? How are you different now than you were before?
Well, I guess for me, I think what it happened is that after going through the treatment and all that, it was a little while, and I started getting involved in the cancer community and doing things. Epic would have been the first start. Epic was the first thing I did that way, and it really introduced me to something different. Where I'm sure we'll talk about more of that. But and then I guess I made the goal of retiring and doing different things, and I was able to retire about 1.5 years ago.
Awesome.
And volunteer work is what I do. I say I work for free, and so yeah, it was a pretty big change that way, and I'm lucky that I was able to do that, pull that off.
Yeah.
And for me, being told I only had 18 months to 24 months to live,
Wow.
Every day is a bonus day for me.
Mhm.
I truly look
Right.
at it that way. It's just every day is a gift. And I don't the big stuff that used to bother me, it's all little mundanes now, and
Yeah.
it's trivial compared to life or death.
Yeah, definitely. Being told you have just that limited time, I can imagine that. Are there things, just in terms of side effects, either of the treatment or um, even the cancer itself, that are ongoing issues? And have you, well, let me ask you that first.
Well, I go in every 4 months to get checked up because of how aggressive my cancer was. And
Yeah.
I just got the checkup last night, and I'm still non-detectable. And the
Awesome.
oncologist just shakes his head and smiles and says, "Congratulations, this is wonderful." And side effects, I don't know. I don't have the energy that I used to have. And one wonders, that's probably a factor of age, but also I just don't feel like myself like I used to.
Just a general feeling of not being the same. You
Right.
know, I just put it together. They gave you 18 to 24 months, and this is now 7 years. That is just awesome.
Yeah, it's
That
incredible.
that's incredible. Brad, how about you? Are there side
Well,
effects?
I guess I would say that first of all, there are a lot, like any cancer, there's a lot of possibilities of side effects, and I'm learning more about this. It was interesting because I again, being involved in these things, I was asked to assist on putting together a brochure on prostate cancer, and in helping with that, I learned that you are much more susceptible to osteoporosis. Osteoporosis, I think I'm saying
Yeah.
that right. Yeah, which I'm like found out through that, not through the doctors and such. Erectile dysfunction, is a very common thing for obvious reasons. There are, and actually, I don't want to get too specific, but I actually am having a issue right now with bleeding and things like that, and that's not uncommon, and that just popped up in the last 2 days. So kind of working through that right now, and
And
but
that's a result of treatment, like a side
we think
effect of
so.
treatment?
We think so. I have to go for a CT scan and stuff like that. So we're thinking that way. It depends on what type. Like Carl said, I think was the same, and myself. The drug Lupron has a lot of side effects during treatment, but like interesting enough, one of them is weight gain. Huge, because you're cutting off all your testosterone, and so it's almost like a man going through menopause. And weight gain is very common, so that's been a really challenge. Being now 62 years old, losing weight isn't easy no matter what. And then that does that way, and energy and things like that. And so I think it's not as dramatic as a lot of other treatments, but does have a lot of small things that can build up that way. So.
Yeah. Well, and Brad, you mentioned erectile dysfunction, so we'll go to this personal topic. But
Sure.
Is that something that you guys dealt with? And if so, did you find something that helped? Because I'm sure there are other guys. It's this, they experience the same thing.
Yeah. I guess I would say it can be very dramatic. I mean, it can be to the point of almost no function or whatever. That's not my case, and it probably the little blue pill or whatever. and so yeah, starts with that and goes to all kinds of other things, and of course, some men will have absolutely no function at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Carl, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just I think, with surgery, they perfected surgery now to do nerve sparing, which preserves the perennial branch of nerves that hopefully prevents having ED after surgery. Unfortunately, in my case, the cancer had hit all the nerves, so they had to remove all the nerves. So there's a lot of treatments that, as Brad mentioned, you got the pills, there's injections, and then they even have surgeries where they can do a prosthetic that will restore functionality on that. So there's a lot of good treatments that men can go explore and do and regain their intimacy with their spouse and loved ones.
Wow, I did not know that. That is good to know. And I'm sure we've had a few people who are making comments. So Todd says, Brad was a great resource for me when I went through prostate cancer experience. What a great help. I'm glad he's focusing on helping others. So that was a comment. And if you happen to just be joining us, I do want to say Erectile is a pharmaceutical company that is one of our sponsors. They're the one that helps us put on this Beyond Cancer series. So we just want to put a shout out to them. And again, if you're just joining us, this is episode 23 of the Beyond Cancer series. We're talking with Brad and Carl about prostate cancer. And feel free to go ahead and put in a question in that comments section, and we will go ahead and ask them what they think. All right. I'm wondering now, Carl, you just said this, that you are still going every 4 months. And is that kind of for the rest of your life? Is that what they're thinking?
It is. And basically, back what Brad was saying about the hormone deprivation, the Lupron, I did that for 2 years. And it kind of burned my body out of producing testosterone.
Wow.
So I go in and have testosterone pellets put in every 4 months so I can have a normal level of testosterone. So before I go and have that done, they do the PSA blood draws and checks to make sure the cancer hasn't returned in order for them to be able to do the procedure.
Wow. And Brad, how often are you going?
I'm in once a year.
And
now, so I went, like Carl, kind of 4 months, 6 months, now once a year. And so I'm on that. As a matter of fact, just Monday was my 1 year checkup. And I guess every year now, I move into a higher percentage of, less chance of reoccurrence.
And for both of you, part of your normal follow-up is this blood test to test your PSA, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Carl, do you actually have a biopsy too, or do they just do the PSA at this point?
Just the PSA at this point. Now that they've removed the prostate gland, there's probably little reason for them to do a biopsy because there's nothing to biopsy.
Yeah.
In fact, it's all just burned scar tissue now after radiation.
Yeah, that is the truth. If you think about your whole cancer journey, there's a lot of things that are not positive about it, that are negatives, the shock, the side effects, all of those things. Have you guys experienced any positives? Is there anything unexpectedly good, positive that's come out of it over the last few years for you guys?
Yeah, I think the fact of how kind people can be and how compassionate they are was tremendous in my process and surgeries and healing and treatments. And it makes you so grateful for all the medical professionals who dedicate their life to really doing this. I remember the first time I met with my radiologist oncologist. He goes, I just spent 4 hours last night going through the cancer website on prostate cancer and doing research on you before we met. And I thought, wow, that's really incredible that you would take that kind of time. And just to all the researchers and the treatments that they have come up with, just makes you really, at least, and that was my nickname at camp, was grateful.
Awesome. I love the way you spell it too. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. Brad, how about you?
Yeah, I would definitely echo on the medical professionals and that. I think, you got to be kind of a special person to get into oncology because obviously there are a lot of bad things that happen with that, and to face that and to have that, positive attitude towards us and everything that way, because I think it would be very easy to be detached because of the pain that they probably go through too. So that would be that. And I would say secondly, it's the community, that has grown out of that, I'm a overall pretty introverted person and I've gained all these friends around, that I have. And that's kind of unusual for me to have this different group of people and that. So that's been really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Gail, one thing that really helped me was there's a prostate forum. I know there's a number of prostate forums out there,
Oh, yeah.
but there's one called Healing Well and a prostate forum, and a phenomenal resource to any man who have been diagnosed, who are going through treatments. As Brad mentioned, it's a community of prostate cancer victims or survivors all across the world, and they are so unselfish with their advice and treatment guidance that they give you. And that really helped me kind of go from step A, B, and C all the way through all my treatments is, okay, what should I expect? What are the side effects? What recovery going to be? And it's a great resource. So I would highly recommend that. Brad, I don't know if you got onto any forums or not.
Yeah, I have a few. We have a very active Gildas club in our area, and so they have groups that way, and a couple different, one prostate and one just general. There's also one called Howl at the Moon, which is a men's group. Yeah, and I think I think I got that right. And then actually, like one group that we talk about Epic is called Real Recovery, REEL, and they do these fly fishing events and things like that. So been involved in a few that way.
I did that as well. It was great. All the volunteers who are expert fly fishermen take prostate cancer survivors out and fly fish with you for the day. It's a wonderful experience.
That's awesome. So, Carl, can you repeat the website?
Yeah, it's called Healing Well, HealingWell.com.
Perfect.
And they have different forums for different illnesses. Prostate, I think, is their biggest forum, and they have hundreds of thousands of members on it.
That's great. Given that idea of having a resource and I guess ways to cope, are there any other things that you guys found really helpful? Maybe when you either physically weren't feeling well, mentally, emotionally weren't feeling well, just were having a hard time wrapping your head around this whole experience. Is there anything you found that was, for you, a way to cope?
I would say, first of all, I just want to correct. It's called The Howling Place. So I was talking about the moon thing. I think that was. I think that was a piano thing.
Piano place in Denver. Yeah.
So that's the chemo brainy thing. I think what for me it was getting outside. I think it's really easy to sit around and, I don't know, mope may not be a really good way to put it because you deserve the mope, but get out. And it was when I was physically really knocked down. I mean, I started walking a couple hundred yards, and then build on that. And I, at one point in my life, was a pretty athletic person, did, competitions and stuff. And so to be knocked down to a couple hundred yards was pretty hard. But building on that, and then a little further, and then going to parks and walking, and then hiking and all that. And so, yeah, I think getting out in nature is a big thing if you can.
Yeah,
I was like Brad, just getting out walking and extending the length of the walk every single day, and getting the endorphins that exercise would bring, and then just surrounding myself with family and friends who were really supportive, would kind of pull me out of a funk.
Yeah, definitely. Todd is saying that I should ask Brad about Brad's list.
Okay.
Tell us about Brad's list.
Brad's list. I started this last year a nonprofit, and so the nonprofit I have is not a 501c3. I self-fund it, so I don't look for donations or everything. And it's called bradslist.info. And what it is it's a resource for cancer survivors. And so I don't try to list everything out there, but some of the top resources, Epic being one of the top ones that way too, of what cancer survivors can find, things to do, resources for them, what they can get involved in. I have some stories of cancer survivors and other items like that. So yeah, it's something that I started. And it's been a fun project because, like I say, being self-funded means that you don't have any money. And so like I designed the website, which is a really stretch in my technology and stuff like that. And so it unfortunately has taken, just like everything out there, a little bit of a hit this year because I can't get out and do the volunteer efforts that I had been doing because you can't go in person,
Right.
and that. So I'm kind of hoping when things clear up, like for instance, I was doing driving for American Cancer Society, driving people to treatment and stuff.
Oh,
But
yeah.
and actually, what I have been able to do, I just started a couple months ago, is driving for a blood center. So when they collect blood, then I'll drive it to different hospitals,
Okay.
and it's an on-call thing. So I'll be there, and they'll say, "Oh, we need to drive 50 miles over here, get some platelets over there to treat a COVID patient or something like that." So it's like everything else. It's been interesting trying to do volunteer work other than online like this.
Yes. COVID has made everything interesting.
Yeah.
Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them there. Todd, thank you for asking that. I'm wondering if you guys have, like, if you were to meet someone who's newly diagnosed, do you have any advice? Do you have anything that you learned through your process that maybe you wish you would have known and now you can, share it with someone else? Anything along those lines with someone newly diagnosed with prostate cancer?
I would say there's just a lot of hope out there. And every day they've advanced the treatments for prostate cancer. And I think the prognosis of surviving the experience has greatly increased. And so I wouldn't maybe stress and worry as much as I did going through that experience.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
And I agree. And I would say that a couple things. First of all, do research, but be careful with research. Because one of the things that I discovered early on is that, like, if you get into a lot of blogs and things like that, is a lot of that has to do with when things go bad. Because think of it, if you had a bad experience in a restaurant, you're going to put a bad review. And so people who are having the difficult times with treatments, because not everything goes good, they have a tendency to be out there more. And if things are going good, you're not going to. So I found that kind of early on in my research. All of a sudden, a light went off, like, okay, these are all the bad things. That doesn't mean it's going to go that way. And you can pay attention to it, but, that way. Secondly, if at all possible, get a mentor in one way or another, somebody who's been through it. And actually a good partner organization of Epic is Immerman Angels. And they will, and so I've done that too, because they'll find people who have gone through the same type of treatment, not just because, as Carl's experience is a lot different than my experience. And so he would be able to give somebody advice a little more towards what he went through that I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't think I asked this, but did you guys search Dr. Google when you got diagnosed? I think, Brad, this is what you're kind of referring to, is that what's out there is a lot of negative stuff. Carl, did you do any kind of research like that?
I did a lot of research. I didn't do Dr. Google, but I did the Healing Well, and it was very supportive. I mean, obviously there were men all over the spectrum of who had mild cases to had the severe cases, but they were all very positive and supportive and saying, don't worry, it's all going to work out. And some would say, yeah, you got a really bad case, but the odds are in your favor. And I think some of them really lied and stretched the truth in terms of being so positive, but that helped me get through it. And it helped me do a lot of research. So when I went to each doctor's appointments, I was able to ask better questions, and the on-call just loved it because they could sit and talk, more and say, okay, you've done your homework, these options, let's talk and vet them through and see what's the best one for you.
Excellent. You know, one thing that didn't come up for either of you is, did either of you seek second opinions when you were initially diagnosed? I'm just curious.
Well, actually, in a sense, I did not, but I had kind of a funny experience along that lines because of the fact that I had, in my mind, done a fair amount of research and all, and I read the entire 100 questions about prostate cancer and stuff like that. And the interesting part for me is that, and this kind of, woke me up too, is I did all this research. I mean, I read studies from Great Britain. I was, all over the board with everything. And when I went in for the meeting with the urologist about treatment, I was convinced I was going to have surgery and have a prostatectomy. And that's what I thought was going to happen. And at that point, he said, no, I don't recommend it. Now, basically, this was the surgeon. So to put it bluntly, that's where he's going to make money off of,
Right.
And so he was like, no, I don't recommend this. I'm sending you to the oncologist for them to do this and for them to work on the treatment and come up with the plan for you. And in a sense, that was almost a second opinion because it was a total different direction than I thought. So I did not go for a true different opinion. And also, I was treated through the UW cancer system, which is really one of the leaders in the nation. So I had pretty good confidence with them. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in, and I actually, my first appointment with my urologist oncologist was with the insurance company I was with. And he did a digital rectal exam to see if there's any tumors on your prostate. And he didn't find any. So luckily, the next day I had an appointment with our premier cancer center out here.
Yeah.
And the physician's assistant did the digital rectal exam and found a tumor immediately, which led to the biopsy that probably saved my life. So,
oh, yeah.
So I think a second opinion can be very valuable. And I, like Brad said, I researched a lot about, should I have surgery? Should I do the brachytherapy that Brad had? And went to radiologist oncologists, went to the surgeons and talked to them. And they were pretty direct and open. And, you had to say, okay, do you really have a bias? Like if you're a surgeon, they get paid to cut. But the medical providers I went to were pretty upfront and direct and said all the benefits and the negatives and said, you ought to go find and talk to a radiologist and get their perspective, which I did.
Interesting. So one question I kind of like to end with each time, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to share with the people watching, with family members, with caregivers, with actual people who have been diagnosed? Is there anything I haven't touched on that you want to share as part of your experience? I leave this one wide open for you guys.
I don't know. I think it's kind of funny because I sometimes laugh at stuff when I think back on it. And I think it's kind of like you have to laugh at your loss of dignity at points. Because so when I was having external beam radiation done, I would go every day and have that done. And if anybody doesn't know what it is, it's basically a pinpoint radiation shot right at pinpoints in your body, in this case, your prostate. And so what I'd have to do is I'd have to go every day, leave, run there, get there at a certain time. I had an appointment and strip down to, the gown with the back open and then go into the waiting room for that with other people around who were fully dressed, and trying not to show my ample booty. And the weird thing about external beam radiation for prostate cancer is you have to have a full bladder.
Oh, really?
But a not too full bladder.
Oh, my.
So what you do is the first time that you have it done, or the first time you go for an appointment and they actually make like a template so you're in the exact same position, and then they measure and they say, okay, that's good, because it pushes your prostate up so that they can shoot at it. So you have to have it, full. You have to be ready to pee, but not too full. And so you'll go there and well, you're a little bit short, go out and drink a little bit more, or you're a little bit high. Can you go just tap a little bit off?
Oh my God.
And if anybody has ever tried to tap a little bit off, good luck.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I just kind of, when I think back on that, and the technicians were really good about it all, but it was just a game every day to get that all right and to do that. So
I like that perspective, that it was a game.
yeah.
Just keeping the balance.
Yeah, you're like, at 1 o'clock, I'm going to start drinking water, and I'm going to drink this much till this, and I'm going to drive. And, so anyways, I think everybody's gone through cancer, has some loss of dignity, and if you can kind of laugh at it, that's a good thing.
Yep, I agree.
So, yeah.
Carl, is there anything I asked that you would share?
I think just surround yourself with really good people to help you get through this. And I had a great wife who would go to all my appointments. And Brad, I don't know about you, but when I would go to the doctor's appointment at first, and it just kept going from bad to worse, I was in a fog. And I didn't really process all the information that was being told to me. But my wife took copious notes. Luckily, she was a nurse, so she could talk a little medical jargon with them. And we would sit down and we would then vet the discussion on the way home and then when we were at home. And that kind of really made a big difference in my care, is getting the full picture of what was discussed at the appointment. So that would be one recommendation. And I know with COVID, they're limiting people that can go into, you're probably the only one that can go in and see the doctor. So I would say take a tape recorder or a recorder in and record it, just so you get the full discussion and you can listen to it again after, when that fog isn't as thick as it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I would third that one. That is an excellent, because your brain is on overload completely. Well, thank you both so much for joining us, Carl and Brad. We have a comment that you were both great speakers. You came across very well. I really appreciate you being willing to be vulnerable, to kind of share, like you said, the indignities and the other things you've experienced. Thank you for your advice, for the resources that you shared. Again, we'll be here in 2 weeks with another episode of the Beyond Cancer series, and we hope you enjoyed today's discussion. If you know anyone who has had prostate cancer, this will be available for viewing on YouTube and at the Epic Experience website. All right. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Yeah, it's fun. Thanks.
Bye, Brad.
Epic Experience was founded after my oldest son, Michael, was diagnosed with testicular cancer in 2007. I wanted to offer up hope to other cancer survivors so people know they're not alone, so that they know they can get out and start living again. It just may look different than how it did before they had cancer.
Epic Experience is unique in the fact that we really pride ourselves on trying to take anyone and everyone that we can. Doesn't matter when you were diagnosed. If you've been diagnosed 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out, we don't put a timeline on it. We say that, you know what, if you've had cancer come into your life, we have a place for you.
Epic Experience. One word, it's epic. You have a chance to come up here and do some things that you've never probably done before.
This camp has taught me, why are you afraid? What's stopping you? I got out on the water in the pond here, and I'm like, I haven't done a headstand in a long time, and it's really difficult to do it on water. And I'm like, what am I afraid of?
At camp, it's about healing your soul and your spirit and living beyond that cancer diagnosis, having fun, being with people that understand, and really just embracing everything that life has to offer you.
They just said you were going to go to a camp, and I didn't even know where it was going to be. I got hauled up the mountain and got to play in the snow, and the thing that happened is I rediscovered joy, found myself again. Favorite memories from camp? Running down the hill in snowshoes. It's something I never really considered before.
I got on a sled today, and I'm going to be honest. I mean, I've beat cancer, but I was still nervous to get on a sled.
Well, kayaking is individual. You're all alone in your boat, and it's you versus the elements and how strong you are and getting through the challenges that are coming up, whether they're rapids or something in the water in the way. And with cancer, it's you versus your diagnosis.
Epic Experience is about empowering adult cancer survivors and thrivers beyond their cancer diagnosis. It's about giving them a community in which they feel that they have people they can connect with, that understand them, and have walked their shoes to really know, hey, you know what? I'm not alone, and I have people with me, and it's so important for them to feel that connection.
Things that I used to worry about don't worry me as much anymore. Family is critically important. Friends and experiences is what life is about.
Well, I didn't think I needed this week, but I needed it more than I knew. I needed to just play in the snow. I needed to laugh until my sides hurt. I needed to connect with people, even though I didn't think I did. I needed to find out that I'm not alone in things I think I'm alone in.
So here at the 7W Ranch, not only are the activities that we do for the week amazing, but just the beautiful scenery around alone makes it just so incredible.
I was feeling a bit lost and unsure how to cope with life after cancer. I feel like Epic Experience brought me closer to who I used to be and who I want to be in the future.
Want me to cry when I talk about 7W? It's magic. Say. It's special.
If you are debating on coming on this trip, just do it. Don't hesitate. I hesitated. I waited till the last minute, and I am so grateful that I came here.
This has been life-changing. This week has absolutely changed my life in ways that I couldn't have even imagined that it would.
Epic Experience is the right name for this experience. Trust, go for it.
Why can't you experience this? It's something that they've already been through, cancer treatments, whatever the therapy is, and this is another way to heal.
If you want to really check back in with yourself and find out where your inner person is and where your soul survives, come to a camp and just let it be.
Don't think about it. Don't wonder, should I? Just do it. Sign up for camp, and it will be an amazing experience full of a lifetime of memories.